And we're live. Hey, welcome everyone. My gosh, it's been such a long time and just truly excited to be here doing a podcast again. I want to apologize for our audience for the long disconnect. In case you haven't been wondering, 2020 has been just a very challenging year in general for all things. But I'm very excited to be doing a podcast today. And we're back. We're doing another Speaking Bluntly podcast. So this is CJ, aka Carlos, or vice versa, however you want to do that. And I'm here with co-host Kim McCarthy. And in case you don't know Kim, Kim is an absolute rock star in the hemp and cannabis industry with all the different platforms that she does. Everything from hey Charles, welcome. Good to see you. Everything ranging from the cannabis sessions to the Harvest and Plume magazine. And we're going to jump into it. So Kim, I apologize for the long delay, but we're back.
It was funny because I was thinking as I'm getting dressed, it was one of those, oh yeah.
I'm just glad you got dressed for the podcast. Okay, Kim. This year, you never know.
There have been a lot of crazy Zoom conferences. But I was thinking, as I'm putting on this sleeveless tunic, Lordy, it's so hot out. The last time you and I spoke, I think that I was wearing a turtleneck.
That's probably about right. And you posted pictures on your
pandemic.
And you posted pictures from your social feed that you had snow on the ground in like March, or it was like a late snow and there's like a foot of it. I'm like, you can keep it in Colorado, Kim. Just keep the snow there, okay?
Exactly. So, but you know what? The beauty of living here is that all of that becomes runoff. This is exactly where we get all of our water anyway, is the runoff from the mountains. So it's a beautiful time of year. Everything's just literally flowing. But yeah, it's good to see you again. Welcome back from your family vacation. And what have you been doing with your business?
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back. And I did take a vacation last week. We went down to beautiful Destin, Florida, which is more on the Gulf side. And just a shout out to the people in the community there. I mean, everyone is, making you feel welcome, trying to adjust as much as possible. But at the same time, they don't let that slip from the service, from the smiles. And, even though they were wearing the facial coverings and all that, you could just still see the smile through that. And I know my family appreciate that, just in particular being, displaced a little bit from, the traditional spring break that we do as a family. So the moment that the school year ended and all the e-learning was completed, we're like, hey, just as a family, let's step away from things just for a minute or two. But it was a good refresher for me to wake up in the morning and to walk out with the sunshine and to put your feet in the sand and the ocean and the waves and just reflect upon that is just, I think it's so important. And I think that speaks to volumes for like those people who are some of the naturists who spend a lot of time in nature to just refresh themselves, Kim.
If at any time you ever thought I need to get back to nature, or I have this calling that I need to do some forest breathing, or those things may sound foreign to some, but it's actually highly medicinal, and it's exactly what the human body needs, is to literally be in touch with nature. That's why gardening is such a big deal, because even though, oh, I'm getting dirty, you need that contact with earth, the microbes, with the energy. It's and of course,
absolutely. Even just, walking barefoot in nature, they say that's a lot. And I think your internet connection lagged out for just a minute, Kim. You may want to, you're back. You just had a lag spike hit there for a second, but you're back. So no big deal. But just it's so important what you're saying, just to almost to detox, if you will, to, get out in nature and breathe. And I guess that if we have to look at the lockdown altogether from what it did bring, I think it did bring, some good, because it made us reflect upon the simplicity, if you will, of life, of, being at home with families and connecting and, maybe even, building new relationships. I know through that time period, it made me pause and think about a lot of things, because I live a busy lifestyle, as you do as well. And to kind of put a pause on that to say, hey, let's reflect upon, what we're working on, our goals, and looking at, and then now the turmoil that's occurring, and on our thoughts and prayers to the family that was in Minneapolis, and the crime. And we see so many different across the nation, so many protests that are occurring, which is kind of a good segue into your efforts and what you've done with the October edition of Harvest and Plume, where you specifically applaud and show the efforts in terms of the African American community and their achievements. And so applaud your efforts. And I can do a share screen, and we can start there if you want. We can talk a little bit about the June edition. Sure. So let me jump into a share screen. But it's
the Cannabis Sessions.
Yeah, the Cannabis.
Not Harvest and Plume. Yeah.
So let's jump into that. So I have that brought up right here. So I need to bring the other one up, but do you want to go ahead and jump into this one first, and then I can bring up okay, go for it.
So, just let me give a little preface first that with both of the publications, I always have something celebrated, so like if you had a calendar of the month, that type of a thing, what holidays, whether it's hot dog of the month or, so those silly little things up to the important stuff. And so in Harvest and Plume, we talk, I believe it's PTSD Awareness Day. And that's what trying to keep a couple, excuse me, of the themes flowing through the publications. So with Harvest and Plume, it's starting with, I love that droplet. It's all about.
I do too. It's very cool.
Yeah. And Mandy Lyle of Potency number 710, she and I, we were talking, and excuse me, she mentions this weed washing, and I was like, because I had not actually heard that term. But meanwhile, we're actually talking about weed washing, and I had no idea. And that's when I thought, this is more information that needs to be out to the people so that they do understand what's in your product. That it's not just about THC, it's not just about cannabinoids, it's where are you getting your product. And with CBD, especially as I would say as a topical, as a cosmetic, there's a lot of confusion and misdirection out there. So huge kudos and thanks to Mandy for having that long conversation with me and then offering it up in word format so I can put it out for everyone to see. So that was really the same theme through there, weaving through. And then of course, I was just going to say that, how can we improve people's lives? And through your brands, you so graciously said, you know what, we're going to be offering this at cost, because everyone needs proper CBD cannabinoid health. It's a stressful time. And of course, I'm so grateful that you offered that up to all the viewers. But I got to tell you, I love that graphic. That just brought me so much joy.
It brings me a smile as well to think of that, because I remember those days, right?
Yeah.
You know what it makes me think of? It made me think of vacation when we were out on the jet ski and my boys were hanging on for dear life behind me.
I know it. And that's a huge one, is just that face of little kids and that sheer joy. You can't hide it. It doesn't mature out of you. It's just like, so anyway, I thought that was very representative of where you and your brand were coming from the heart, just absolute pure joy and wanting everyone to come to a point of that. And thankfully, CBD is such a wonderful product to help support as we move towards that joy.
Yeah, and as much as I'd love to sit here and pat myself on the back, I would love to give credit to my business partners, Steve Steineck and Elise Hudson, who brought this idea forth to me. They're like, hey, listen, this anxiety, this stress that we've all endured going through this is very real. And I think it's just important, like even the people that are listening to this podcast today, to kind of assess, you take a look through what we've encountered, and it was taking us out of so much of our norms. So that anxiety and stress is so real. And I'd much rather people versus, going to the liquor store and taking up new habits with overconsumption with alcohol. I'd much rather them assess things and potentially utilize cannabidiol CBD as because we know how much it helps with anxiety and inflammation. And so they brought it forth and they're like, hey, here's a couple of products that I think that we can, because we do lean manufacturing with my CBD edibles, and like we can do an infused coconut oil that has so many different uses. They could, people could use it as a topical. They could use it to make things with. And then we're like, well, what about the people that would rather have something just more of like a sublingual? And that's when Steve was like, well, let's use the Clouds brand and let's do an infused MCT oil. So we try to make it as clean as a product as possible. And then we drill down the numbers as much as possible. And I don't want to anger people in our community. And that was something that I told them, like, guys, we can do this for a little bit, but at the same time, we don't want to be bad stewards of the industry and be like a race to the bottom. So let's call this something that we're helping the entire COVID-19, type environment that's going on. And it's our little contribution that we can do. And again, because we do understand the financial impact is so real as people are being, let go from jobs, or they're being, laid off, and hopefully those things aren't permanent. But let's face it, Kim, people's disposable income anymore, it's not there. And they're having to leverage their income and what money is left to pay the rent, the mortgage, to keep the lights turned on, to provide food and put on the table. So that was the very least that we could do to help people through these turbulent times that we're going through.
I love that. And excuse me, when you presented it to me, the first thing that came to mind was during the Depression, and I can't remember the brand. I'm not even going to say a brand just in case I don't want to be misquoted or give someone else. But anyway, everyone having a hard time. Yet there was a flour company that at that time flour was delivered in paper sacks, either burlap or not paper, excuse me, cloth, burlap or some other quality. And this flour mill, they decided to just bump up a little bit of their quality, and it was a printed cloth that all the flour was in. So then that became free material for the families, and they could make clothes. And we know that company didn't continue doing that, but they stepped up when they needed to as a brand, and knowing that they were serving the community. And that's the analogy that I got from you guys offering this up. So yes, please, everyone, they have a limit of 2 per customer. And I don't want to say get it while you can, but get the medicinal need while you can at this wonderful price. He will always be able to to offer the product. It just may not be at this price. So we're all doing our part at this time.
Yeah, and there's other people in the industry that are kind of doing the same thing. So I think as a community, we all kind of reflected upon this and decided to take our own, type of initiatives and things that we were doing. And that's what, Kim, that's what I love about our industry that we're in with, CBD and medical cannabis, is that I think for the larger scope of things that we consider the better good for all versus our own individual, profits and things like that. And that's why I know that the sustainability and the long-term success of our industry is bound, that it's there, and we will be able to sustain through these difficult times that we're going through just because of the community as a whole.
Exactly. But if anything, we just need to be a model for other industries to continue doing the same instead of taking advantage. So let's focus on this, because I know after seeing this image, nobody wants to listen to what I was saying.
What were you saying again?
No. So this is actually let the science talk. This is literally going beyond skin deep, which is why the imagery is there. It's really not to sell sex or anything, but showing that our skin, being the largest organ, and the endocannabinoid system, the various ways that we can supplement it, and one is through the skin. So, how do you maintain nutrition through the skin, and specifically identifying troublesome areas, psoriasis, acne, aging. It happens to us all. I'm sliding off of my skeletal structure as we speak. It's just so slow. So, but again, it's great information. Mandy is, and I always stumble over this word, an anesthetician. So she has deeper knowledge with regard to the beauty products with CBD involved. And the cool thing is that she can give you some really cool like massage things to go along with using her gold serums and stuff.
Awesome.
So anyway,
very cool. Very cool.
And then that goes into weed washing to explain, hey, there's a difference. Where are you getting it? Is it hemp derived? Is it, and that does make a huge difference. So, and that's why that blue section is the oil difference. So instead of me reading it to you, I'll just gloss over it and then y'all go to that link.
Yeah, and just so that like our listeners can follow in, so you can go to, if you go to Facebook and you go to either this publication is on the Harvest and Plume, and or Kim's page, Kim McCarthy on Twitter is at the Pipeline Strategies, and you do a great job of sharing the links to your digital publication, which I would much rather, like when I look through your magazine in terms of the digital format, it's so much more conducive to me because I spend so much time at the computer already, just either checking email or stuff like that. So it's a great, I know you have a different word than I do. I use interactive, and I think that you use, we talk about this like every time.
Well, I say I encourage you to engage with the page, because I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but I think I may save that one. Engage with the page. It's really the experience. You need to understand. It's not just reading. It's not just clicking. It's not a blog. There's adult learning theory that goes into the formatting. And I get contributors, Chris Thistle, and he's from Thistle Farah. And he deals with terpenes, and he's actually in the Cannabis Sessions. Anyway,
oh, nice.
He contributed or he actually contributes not just once, but often. And he asked me, well, how long, what's the limit? And I said, here's the truth. I don't know, 250 or more, because I end up deconstructing anything that goes here. So
Gotcha.
there's a deconstruction process, and then going into the adult learning theory. So that's why it's the experience. It's different.
Yep.
And then following that with, it's clear transparency. If you know about weed washing, then you want to know what's in your product, how to read a certificate of analysis, what goes into it and what it all kind of means. Instead of, I had purchased some CBGA for a friend of mine, and she said, Kim, I don't know, am I taking a test or something? Because I got about 30 pages with this little product. So anyway, I know that you are very knowledgeable on this side. So,
well, yeah, I think it's just important just from a good manufacturing perspective, because, we do source our isolate from a organically sourced grower and processor. Now, currently, if you're using an isolate, you really can't claim it's an organic isolate, because the FDA has not really established any type of organic filtering for that level when you go to put it in the form of an isolate. But for the growers and for the processors, there is organic certification. So you can go to the website for the USDA, and you can search that. And that was important for us when we went to go look, just because there is so much foreign product that's coming into the United States, and there's so many brokers who are doing broker deals, and you just got to be careful with that, because you don't know how long the hemp or the isolate, how long it's been in storage, its potency as it begins to decline based upon after 1 or 2 years. That's why most test analysis, most COAs only have a 2-year max date on them. So they expire after 2 years. And then to take that a step forward, just in terms of consumer base, when you are out shopping and purchasing CBD related product, it's very important for there to be a QR code. And not only can you, scan that QR code to take a look at the source of their hemp or their isolate and seeing the COA, but also after they finish and they take that product and they put it in an edible or a sublingual or a vape, all the different variations of products, there should be a second type of COA that says, hey, this is our analysis of the hemp, the CBD that we received, and this is a second COA of our actual testing from the product that we manufactured. And I think that's just so important, just because trust me, as much people support this industry, there's going to be that many more skeptics who are going to be out there trying to poke holes in it. And I've seen some of these investigative reports. There was one in my local state of Indiana where there was an investigative report where they went out and they purchased a variation of CBD product, and then they actually paid and sent that out for testing, Kim, and you would be amazed. Like some of the product that said they had 500 milligrams of CBD actually had none. so, and again, it's just there, and I say this consistently, not only on our podcast, but also with our Rogue News, is that within any industry, right? Within any industry, doctor, teacher, you name the profession, there's going to be good and bad actors, right? You will never be able to change that variable until we live like in a utopia, perfect society. There's going to be good and bad actors, and you can't deny that. So for that reason, that's why the COA is put in there in place, is to ensure that when you're, because let's face it, when you're spending money on CBD related products or even cannabis related products, you just, whenever you're putting your money towards, you want to validate that what you put your money towards is truly the potency of what you expect to get when, for your money.
I think what's important about this, and this is why, I'm sorry, let me take 2 steps back. With both of the publication, I do a sneaky little thing underneath, and that is I have not a subliminal message, honestly, I'm not that good. But what I do is I have an underlying theme or a message that will take you throughout the theme. And with COAs, it was important for me to get other people to realize the importance of a COA. And why? How many people pay attention to the tags on a pillow or a mattress?
That's
Do
a
not
great point.
remove by, prosecution, or whatever that is. I've looked at it for 50 some odd years and I still don't even know what it says. But do I ever take? I never remove them. I can, but I don't. But I never look into them. The same thing about those COAs. I don't want people, when it comes in the package, just to toss that. Look and see, what is your product. Keep people on the wall. Make sure that the industry and the providers are actually providing quality stuff, and to continue keeping us on that wall. That helps to prevent the riffraffy rats.
Bingo. Very well said. Very well said.
That riffraffy rats. That's official.
Well, let's continue
So
through this. We'll go
yeah,
through, just again, just a great job with the publication. And if you want, we can shift gears. If you want to jump into, because I do want to talk about this specifically, is just the cannabis sessions and your publication that released, and your efforts to draw awareness in regards to the equality that's so important, for not only our industry but just as a whole, as far as society. Kim.
I thank you. You know me, I'm a sap. I get a little emotional about things. It was very important to me. Um, this felt like pandering, and here's why. This was already determined before May 10th. It was supposed to be an honor, something in celebration, a jubilee. And look what's happened. I mean, honestly, I'm happy it happened. We needed it in the worst possible way. We needed it. I'm just sorry it happened this way. But anyway, um, in the spirit of jubilee and honor, I had I had this planned, and like I said, I always have a theme, at least three things that I weave through, and then there's an underlying message, and the underlying message was, we really need to think about our liberties and who we're leaving behind, um, in the facade of us, you know, becoming modern man, modern humanity. That was my subliminal message throughout June's issue of the Cannabis Sessions. And then holy hell broke loose. Um, and actually, since we are on Facebook together, um, I'm not on there a lot from a personal perspective, very rarely. But I don't know, it was probably 3 weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. And that's the foreshadowing actually of this issue is I excuse me. I had to
Take
wipe
your
my
time.
nose.
Take your time.
I'm from the Midwest and I'm from a podunk town, at least it used to be, outside of Columbus. And so I wanted to know, I come from a very homogenized upbringing and community, at least at that time. So I wanted to know how many of you have heard of Juneteenth, and I was honestly waiting for someone to correct me, like June 19th. Um, Not one reply, except for people from like four people from the South. And that really surprised me. And what it did was fuel me to say, that's why I'm doing this issue. That's why I'm doing it this way. So having said that, I made sure that on the full spread, it's about Black independence. And here's the irony. Here's sneak peek into July. It's not
Yeah.
just it's not just America's independence, but you're also July and the Cannabis Sessions. We're celebrating the Buffalo Soldier Day, and so it's just like recognition after recognition after recognition that people need to be stringing together. So the theme throughout this is to celebrate the Jubilee of Juneteenth. And now here we come to the cannabis casualties. And the cannabis casualties overwhelmingly are Black, and then they're brown, and then they're white, and then we all know how that works. And as a result of that, and this is where the pipeline strategies comes in, um, there's an issue with, okay, they went in, they did their time for whatever that crime was. Okay. Now, us as a society, we need to, and they say deal with them. And I say we need to give them an opportunity because first, an event happens and then it changes their lives. We remove them from any type of progress. I mean, any mom who stepped away from her job totally understands coming back 3 years later and their history. They can't keep up. So imagine someone coming out of an incarceration or a conviction. Not only do they have this very specific either cannabis or incarceration or conviction, but now they have a gap in skill sets, in opportunities, so much. And that all gets wrapped up into fair chance hiring. So I consult and advise with brands and at the same time with constituents from the Last Prisoner Project, and as well as activists. I have an activist now from my hometown, well, Columbus,
That's
kind of my
awesome.
hometown.
Very
So,
cool.
sorry, I babbled on a bit about that, but because I'm passionate about it, and we need more extension of give a hand out, you know.
Well, we should be, and it's something, and I haven't participated in any of the protests. I just want to be 100% transparent. I, throughout my professional career, have spent the majority of my time and working within the urban communities. Not only when I was with the healthcare industry with CVS Pharmacy for the 15 plus years, but also when I worked for JP Morgan Chase. It was just one of those things. So I firsthand learn, quite a bit. I would never state that I understand the struggle, because I think until you live it, you can read about it, you can watch videos about it, you can do all those things, but until you're in that epicenter, until you're in that, you truly don't understand it. And you know, I guess without going on too much of a tangent, I think that the challenge, Kim, to me, in my opinion, is when it unfortunately becomes so politicized. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think that it's the state itself that has built this type of oppression. We witness, whether it's in Republican or Democratic strongholds, we've witnessed the last several years basically the militarization of the police force within the communities. It's been green lighted, and through Democratic administrations, through Republican administrations, where we continue to see the weapons of mass destructions from foreign wars, and they place those in the communities. And then they, you know, for whatever reason, they do this. And so to really achieve the reform, I think the effort needs to be put together to understand that it's the state in itself that has created this problem. And how do we change that? How do we, you know, reform society and together as a whole? I specifically yesterday watched one of the protests for over 2 hours. I emphatically I watched it, and I was very impressed by the organization, that they were really saying, hey, don't encourage violence, don't do this. Let's build bridges. Let's talk about what our issues are, and let's talk about what the topics are and what we need to do. And there was only one thing. So there were several, but there was one thing that stood out to me, and it's not self-serving. I know, you know, people that are listening in there, please don't take this as self-serving because we're in the cannabis and the hemp industry. But one of the things that I think is kind of missing from that conversation is just looking at, as a whole, decriminalizing cannabis use altogether. And if the BLM, the Black Lives Matter, or you know, I think I would hope that they would really consider taking that as one of the topics as they protest and they march. And if our current administration, if the state that you live in, if those administrations are being serious about reform, then that should be at the forefront, is the actual decriminalization of cannabis. Because when you look at it as a whole, you take a look at the police state, and and believe it or not, Kim, and this is from the ACLU, it looks over, you know, which is, you know, American Civil Liberties Union, that they've been around for years on end, but they track this stuff. And so if you look at half of drug busts are for pot in America. Imagine how much easier it would be for law officers to not have to worry about this crap, to really to raise to alleviate that from their plate, to say, hey, we're going to decriminalize, you know, cannabis use. And, you know, and for the most part, it's not the drug kingpins that they're going after. It's not the huge, you know, dealers, the cartels or whatever they are. It's people with small amounts of pot, people with small amounts of cannabis, that more than likely they're using it for the individual use. Now, what's interesting, Kim, is that when you drill down this data, and I'm going to read straight verbatim because I don't want to misstate this. This is coming again directly from the ACLU, is that they state specifically that according to the ACLU's original analysis, marijuana arrests now count for over half of all drug arrests in the United States. Of this 8.2 million marijuana arrests between 2001 and 2010, 88% were simply for having marijuana. Nationwide, the arrest data revealed one consistent trend: significant racial bias. Despite roughly equal usage rates, again, that means that between white and black disparity of cannabis usage, blacks are 3.73% times more likely than whites to be arrested for cannabis.
And we're not even talking about incarceration or conviction.
No.
Because the white population, I want to use the right word, but honestly, the only one that comes to me is notoriously gets off. You know that. What you know? What I retract that word. I don't want to say gets off. They have a very different justice system.
Yeah, there is, and specific, and so that, if we can alleviate one part, because again, just as like I've said, I specifically said before, a few minutes ago, that in regards to good and bad actors, that's
Yeah.
in every profession. That's also in law enforcement. So I don't want to discredit the people that serve honorably out there, the people that truly out there looking out and walk that dangerous line every day that they do. So I don't want to discredit that. But how much easier, Kim? How much easier would it be if this was dialed back? If this was one of the variables that was completely taken off their plate altogether, that there weren't any type of quotas that they had to hit or establish for this specific thing. So again, I think that this conversation needs to be put to the forefront. Obviously, is it probably the most important? No, but when you take a look at the data, when you take a look at the war on drugs, it was established through many administrations ago, with this continuation that's just occurred, the countless lives, the millions of dollars that have been spent on this danger, this unneeded, type war on drugs. This potentially could be a start. And it's something that is tangible. It's something that tangible that you can actually see and touch, in terms of equality, of saying, hey, we're going to dial this back because we think this is something that would probably make, lives a little bit better, and then directly impact the black and white disparity in terms of incarceration that's related to cannabis.
Yeah. It's, a lot of this, I think, has to do with deconstructing belief systems. The powers that are in play at this time, keeping those laws in play at this time, the whole domino effect of it is under a lie. We all know it's a lie, and it's a huge pink elephant in the room that we dance around this silly little lie. We need to have the factual information that's out there. And from my perspective, I would love it if there was what was it, a May's issue. There is an infographic I use on the endocannabinoid system. And I used it because, in my opinion, it was the best infographic that doesn't make your mind go, what's a CB1 and CB2 receptor? Oh, what's that thing?
Yeah.
But that you have a cardiovascular system, you have a renal system, you have a nerve system, you have all these systems, including an endocannabinoid system. And I think that once you see, like, what? I have, and it fits in like that, now all of a sudden, what you said becomes silliness to say, I was convicted because I came home with cough syrup or aspirin or vitamin C, or, I got 20 years because I purchased a citrus fruit instead of purchasing chalky chewables. I mean, I don't,
Yep.
I know that sounds utopian, but I'm at the point where I don't understand why we're not having those types of conversations, and why that information is being factual instead of leveraged, because it's all being leveraged. And for what reason? Power, greed, control.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that drips down into everything below a Caucasian.
The money, the financial aspect of it. Yeah. I felt it was very disingenuous when I watched current Attorney General William Barr give up and give a speech.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It was very disingenuous.
That was a facial reaction.
We've been talking long enough about training, about getting into the communities, and there's only so much things that talk can establish versus putting legislation together. And this is, to me, this is a no-brainer. They can look at the data and very easily say, hey, nationally, we're going to decriminalize this. And to me, that would be a huge win. And again, I don't even want to say that it's self-serving, because it's probably not. It'd probably flood the market and do whatever, anything else like that. But it's more just a principle of doing the right thing. And I think it would help not only the African-American, the Black community, but also just in general, just from a law enforcement perspective of, instead of going after these petty type, crimes versus some of the more harsh things that are occurring. And not only that, it would probably clean up the the prosecution in terms of how many of these cases pollute the actual prosecution stream of what's creating a lot of backup in our courts regarding things. So again, I know that it's just an important topic to me because I see this, and then when you look at the profiteering of our jails and the it's just, and it ties right into the Last Prisoner project, right? And I know that you're very tied into the work there. I think it kind of goes hand in hand, and it's just so important, not only in terms of the state that we're living in terms of equality, but also just true reform of something that is of substance that can be changed.
And there are other countries who have succeeded. They have completely championed all of those areas, or maybe not all, but a good portion of them. Excuse me, where the whole purpose in going and being incarcerated is for some type of a rehab, to reintroduce you into society. There's a reason why whatever event happened. Um,
Yep.
it can be learned, the purpose for that event, as well as how it can be put to a better purpose. And that's where we as a country, in my opinion, is where we fail our citizens horribly. And this is evidence. And then it's leveraged. So let's stop that. Let's get to the people. Let's start talking about the people. Let's start. I don't understand why we only have a few hundred people who are making these decisions on whether the legality of a plant. For goodness sake, it's a plant. It's not being processed, and it's not like cocaine. Oh well, it can be processed. Well, cough syrup. There's a reason now it's behind the pharmacist's counter now, and condoms are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it, people. Something that's going to help you, something that's going to benefit your entire healthful system and alleviate all these burdens all at the same time.
Yeah. And Kim, we can save the conversation for a different day, but take a look at the FDA approved opioids and how opioids and now states are spending millions of dollars for treatments for all those things. And that was an FDA approved drug. And certain of those opioids should have never been approved. Those were life ending medications that were in terms of life ending to assist with pain. But those pharmaceutical giants were able to influence, were able to pay off the legislatures to say, hey, maybe this should be used if someone sprains their back. Maybe this should be used. And so they created the problem, and then hence they profited off of it. And now you and I and everyone listening in has to come back and fulfill the training in the states that are spending countless of dollars. So it's very unfortunate. And that's what needs to change. Those are easy things that people can pinpoint on to say, wait a minute, why is it that probably more people die from prescription medications and overdose? And it's just, to me, just one of those no-brainers. But hey, Kim, I do want to close. There's something that important that I do want to talk with you about, and I didn't get the link posted in, but I know that congratulations, you have a speaking opportunity. You're going to be talking about the hemp opportunities and doing some public speaking. And so why don't you share with our listeners what's going on with the hemp opportunities?
Sure, and thank you. So the Pipeline Strategies is a media marketing partner with Cannabis Investing Forum, and that's with Brad Turner. He produces these events, and it's called Hemp Opportunities, and it's an online event, June 30th. I'm on Mountain Time, so my Mountain Time 12 to 5, and he just finished one in May, of course. And there were almost 750 people who showed up. And these are for investors. You can register to speak. You can be chosen as a speaker, a judge for the pitch competition. So there are many ways that I highly recommend getting in there, because he just started the one, and there were, like I said, 750 people there. And now people are like, I am so there for the next one. So please go to the, because of course it's a long link. It's an Eventbrite link, and you can go to.
After the podcast, I'll go back in and add it in to the link so people can see it.
Oh, thanks. And you can go to the social media, LinkedIn, mine, or any of the Cannabis Sessions, which is at the Canna Sessions or at the Cannabis Sessions, and then at Harvest and Plume. Thank you.
Oh, it's the least I could do. And as I was sharing all that information, I didn't even have the share screen on, and I was clicking away, showing all this information as you were going through it, thinking that people were seeing my screen. That's a challenge, that when you're commenting and also handling the tech side of it, is that you miss some of those things. So here's the page. Here's the Eventbrite page, and not to rehash everything that Kim said, but this is the hemp opportunities to discuss everything related to agriculture, industrial, medical, nutrition. There's so much to the depth of hemp and the opportunities, and you can participate. You have, you can, we'll put the link in the description to go in and learn about the virtual Zoom webinar, the topics, the agenda, the information coming forth. And if you look at the picture I have on there, you see the person that's on this podcast, Kim McCarthy, is actually going to be one of the featured speakers, which I think is really cool.
And by the way, anyone, because it's not short notice, but because I came on board in short notice, that's my issue. Anyone who wants to help market this, I will give you an override. So contact me through any of the social media, private message me, and it's an easy way to earn some additional money while getting the message out, and it's the message we want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kim, thank you for a great discussion today. It's great to be back, and we will back next week. Maybe we can see if there's a guest from the actual hemp opportunities that wants to come in and talk a little bit more about this. But in the interim, please make sure, if you're listening to this, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you also visit our site. So go to rogue420.net, where you can see all the different articles. It's everything related to investment, to advocacy, all those great things. Make sure you also check out the most recent edition of the Harvest and Plume digital magazine, as well as the Cannabis Sessions. Kim is very active on social media, so you can go to Facebook and see the Cannabis Sessions Facebook page, as well as the Harvest and Plume Facebook page. And then, Kim, once again, what is your Twitter handle, and then any other way people can connect with you?
Oh, honestly, I'm not good about Twitter. I'm really sorry about that. But the other one, I'm almost positive. Twitter,
LinkedIn. I see you active on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. It's Kim McCarthy. Let's see. I think it's Kim McCarthy 66. Let's see. Harvest and Plume, the Cannabis Sessions, the Pipeline Strategies. All of those for all the social media. But on Facebook, it's the Canna Sessions. And on Twitter, it might be the Canna Sesh 1 or Sessions 1.
I do have one of your links up for Harvest and Plume for Twitter for the Pipeline Strategy. So
okay,
I'll go through and add the other. So, but Kim, it's great to reconnect, and I'm glad that we're back and closing out. And we'll be back next Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another edition of the Speaking Bluntly podcast. This is Carlos, aka CJ, with Kim McCarthy, and thank you all for tuning in. And we'll be back next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.
All right.